Good evening. Welcome to the Croatian American Sports Hall of Fame, our second induction ceremony and dinner. Hello, Pittsburgh. Allegheny County, Western Pennsylvania. We did pick a right place. Croatian American Sports Hall of Fame is owned and operated by the National Federation of Croatian Americans, a charitable, recognized nonprofit organization based in USA with members throughout the United States and member groups. Greetings to the President of Croatian National Federation of Croatian Americans, Steve Rukavina, the officers, today's delegates to the annual assembly, and many members. Also, greetings to the 7-member sports committee of the Croatian American Sports Hall of Fame and the 10-member selection committee. NFCA has many members, groups, and the largest being the Croatian Fraternal Union based here in Pittsburgh. Greetings to the President, Edward Peza, officers, and many members of the CFU. 2 years ago, when we had our inaugural induction ceremony in October in Cleveland, Ohio, we said we would be back. We always stressed the fact that Croatian Americans contributed to all the facets of American life, from commerce, arts, entertainment, sports, you name it. We're very loud for a small nation, but we can back it up. Two years ago, we inducted and enshrined 10 members of the inaugural class of Croatian American Sports Hall of Fame, 1 woman. Tonight, we're inducting 11, again, 1 woman, and a family from 2 years ago is going to be present also. Congratulations to the inductees. I want to recognize the many donors and sponsors we had. Our corporate sponsor is PepsiCo, and its brand, Buffalo Wild Wings. Thank you, PepsiCo. Our founding patrons are Croatian Radio Club, Voice of Free Croatia, New York, Croatia Fund Inc., New York, and Neda Young and family. This year, we also have a new patron, Josip and Susan Grgas family. And the other sponsor of this evening is the Croatian Academy of America. Thank you, our sponsors and donors. As I said earlier, we participate in all walks of life here in America to make this country great at what it is. But our neighbors, our in-laws, our cousins are also of other ethnic groups. And we're very smart for being Croatian. We take the best of everybody. So we have, as I said, our cousins are other ethnicities, other faiths, other races. It's all good. Thank you for being here tonight. And to make this evening possible, you have to have an organization. You can't do it alone. So the National Federation of Croatian Americans, which operates Croatian American Sports Hall of Fame, is activists throughout the country. We have 1 man running it for 13 out of 31 years in 4 different terms. His attention to detail is unprecedented. And without him, we couldn't do it. So I want to recognize and invite the president of NFCA-CF, Mr. Steve Rukavina.
Okay, folks, I'm Steve Rukavina, president of the NFCA-CF, chair of our Croatian American Sports Hall of Fame. Let me just introduce a few of our distinguished, honorable guests. And we are so happy and honored to have His Excellency, the Most Reverend Bishop, again, William John Walter Scheid. Let's have a nice round of applause. That food tasted really good after the blessing. Again, Brother Ed Peza, National President of the Croatian Fraternal Union. What a reception last night in Monroeville. Let me welcome and recognize the former Allegheny County Executive, Rich Fitzgerald. married into a Croatian Tomasovich family from the area of Lika, near all the Rakovinas. Okay, and let me introduce the Honorable, the Croatian ambassador to the United States of America, who spoke to our delegates and special guest, Pierre Shimonovich. Thank you for attending. And he's a boxer, and he's had a great time meeting all the Zivic family, and we'll hear more about that. So, there they are. Okay. Okay, it's my honor, moving right along, a former CNN, Fox sports broadcaster, sportscaster, 15 plus years with the Atlanta Hawks and Atlanta Braves, 8 Emmys, and from Sharon, Faro, Pennsylvania, Jerome Jurenovich.
Dobro dan. Vide sve ove zagodne Hrvati. I hope I said that right. Y'all that understand Croatian said, look at all these beautiful Croatians here, right? And you're all beautiful Croatians tonight. Hey, it warms my heart to be back home in Western Pennsylvania. Western Pennsylvania, by the way, I tell everybody down in Georgia, is where the winners are born. You know, there are so many people in this room tonight, over 300. I want to thank you personally for coming here and helping make this a true celebration. And so many deserving inductees that we're going to honor. It's a pleasure to be here again, our second Croatian American Sports Hall of Fame ceremonies. As a sports fan like all of you, I grew up watching these athletes and admiring them. And as a broadcaster for 40 years, I was privileged to interact with a handful of them along the way. So it's a special night for me as well. Tonight, we all get to spend time with them, honor them, and of course, pay honor to our Croatian heritage. I can't tell you how many times I was in the studios at CNN Sports or Fox Sports, and I'd be watching the games on the monitors. I didn't care how many points somebody scored, how many tackles they made. If they had an ICH at the end of their name, I'm like, that is my man right up there. I grew up about an hour north of here in tiny little Farrell, PA, a member of St. Anthony's Croatian Catholic Church, well represented by Tina and Rose, as they always are. And our church, we honored our heritage. It was part of our daily life, and being a proud Croatian is who I was raised to be and who I will always be, as I know so many of you are. This past summer, my wife and I made our 4th trip back to the homeland, and I swear, every meal I had in Revenge, I had either black truffle sauce or black truffle shavings on there, and I'm craving that right now. I cannot recommend that more if you ever go over there. And we saw Andrea Bocelli perform in the Coliseum in Pula. That was absolutely spectacular. So I hope tonight is an incredible memory for our 11 inductees. And with that, let's go ahead and get started by letting me explain to you that we don't just honor the elite of the elite. Of course, a lot of these people here are elite athletes, but we also honor them not just for their contributions to their team and individual efforts in their respective sports, but also in their community and in their careers after they get done playing their respective sport. So with that, our first inductee may be a name that many of you may not be familiar with if you didn't grow up in Minnesota or Wisconsin. But if you understand the history of ice hockey in the United States, you know this last name. For more on that, let's bring Steve back up here.
This is my only intro because of my special family connection. My dad's from Virginia, Minnesota, the sister city of Eveleth, the Iron Range of Minnesota with all those great hockey players. John Mayasich. My dad always called him Johnny Mayasich, the best hockey player who ever laced up his skates, Mayasich. And voted the #1 hockey player in the history of hockey in Minnesota. Our only silver medal, gold medal winner here tonight. Silver medal in 1956, 1960, who's on the gold medal team that won at Squaw Valley, the team Herb Brooks unfortunately did not make. John Mayasich won the state tournament 4 years in a row. Never lost a game in high school. Minnesota has some incredible hockey teams. He's still the leading scorer at the University of Minnesota, the all-time leading scorer. And so John Mayasich may be a name you haven't heard or known, but tonight you're going to meet the hockey player my dad always said was the best that ever played in Minnesota. We are so honored to have, from Evelyn, Minnesota, where the Hockey Hall of Fame is, John Mayasich.
He didn't say my age. Yeah. How do you like these colors? So you'll say why? Minnesota was maroon and gold. My hometown, Evelyn, maroon and gold. I was 8, 9 years old peddling papers till I was a senior in high school. And my favorite baseball team, the Pittsburgh Pirates. Think of that. So we didn't have television. We never listened to pirate baseball. Why did I pick Pittsburgh? No reason. So here I am. Been to every city in the U.S., country in the world almost. Never been to Pittsburgh. So Croatia, Pittsburgh, right here. Think of them. So 5 minutes I've got. They said because of my age I got 6. Yeah. So my son Danny had an outline for me. What am I at, 4 minutes? Number 1, I can't read it. Number 2, I won't follow it, so Croatia, Ma and Pa, born by Ogulin, a little village, 3 miles apart from each other. They didn't know each other. One was a Mayasich, one was a Polkovich. Guess where they met? How many years later? In Evelyn, Minnesota. My mother had a cousin that had a rooming house in Evelyn for these single miners. And, cooked for them, washed her clothes. And Pa, 17 years old, a miner, stayed at the boarding house. So he meets Ma. So my Ma and Pa. Legal immigrants back then went to Ellis Island, had sponsors, and they had jobs when they, it's a little different than what we're seeing today. So here I am representing them. And what I might have accomplished, and it wasn't shooting a hockey puck. God, that's what you hear. But being one of 11 kids, think of that. Ma never went to school. No reading, no writing, nothing. Pa had an eighth grade education, 11 in the family. Think of that. And what did they work their lifetime for us, family. So never saw me play hockey. Never went to a game. And I played 4 years of hockey, 3 of football, 4 of baseball. I went to the state in tennis. Wasn't on the team, but I played ping pong growing up, so kind of like tennis. And I high jumped. I went to the state. I wasn't on the team, so I'm not bragging about my ability, sports ability. And I told my family, I said, but what I had that nobody else had was those Croatian genes. Think of that. And what it meant. And why I'm here tonight. So I'm accepting on their behalf, Ma and Pa, and what they did, what they sacrificed, what they gave up for us, for me, for family. brothers and sisters. We didn't have a garage. Our garage in Evla, think of this, was a barn. We had a cow, we had a pig, we had chickens, we had gardens all over town, outside of town. No car. How did we make it? The sacrifice. Yeah. We didn't even have a wagon to fall off of, right? Yeah. But, so believe me, and I look back, and it's why me? And I'm doing a book. The kids are on my butt, yeah. So when are you going to do it? I said, I'll wait till I get older. So I'm going to do a book, and they give me 5 minutes. What am I at? No, I'm not. So it's not me, it's family, it's parents, so again, I have to say, what did I have that the other kids didn't have? And later on in life, I caught the biggest fish, I killed the biggest elk. I did, why? Horseshoes, I'd beat anybody here in horseshoes. But as a young kid, I used to watch the good players, how they held it, how they released it. I never had a hockey coach growing up. And they say I invented the slap shot. I think you know what that is. Yeah. Some kid from Michigan, Tomjanovich, somebody from Michigan, said he was a freshman at the University of Michigan, early 50s. He saw a Canadian kid do a slap shot. And I worked in the summer with Eichel, a goalie. And he showed me, I said, well, what do you mean? So he showed me how to do it, So I worked on that when I went back to the U as a sophomore and spent hours on a slap shot. And I wouldn't aim at the net, I would aim at the pipes. So that's me with, so it kind of came naturally after, but, so these are things, never had a coach. My first pair of new skates, guess when I got them? The University of Minnesota, a freshman. So I gave them my shoe size. What the hell do I never had a new pair of skates? They're usually a size and a half smaller. And they said, God, you're not skating like you did, stuff. So first hockey stick, I never had a new stick. We used to get broken ones, get tin cans and wrap them around tape. Oh, got it. So that's how, yeah. So look how it is today. I've got grandkids that got $200 skates at 5 years old. Yeah. So, but it wasn't me, it was our neighborhood on my Summit Street. There were 17 hockey players that got Division I scholarships at colleges and universities. Just think of that. Yeah. But we learned as kids, we didn't have television, remember that. No cell phones. We went home to eat and sleep, and that was it. So, different culture today. So my advice to parents, don't push, follow. And I think you know what I'm saying. It's, don't force them into these sports. I believe in playing all the sports if you can. And if nowadays, if you can afford to play. But, so we were lucky. Born in a good time with parents who donated their life that I could be up here today. And I thank all of you and the association for the induction, and it's special to me. So of all the Hall of Fames I've been involved with and inducted to or in, one of my favorites, back probably in the 80s or 90s, I was the first Minnesotan inducted into the Minnesota High School Hall of Fame, high school athletes. Guess who was inducted with me? From Pennsylvania. Anybody? Okay, he was a golfer. Arnold Palmer, yeah. God. So what a thrill. I look back today, I think of all the people I've met, and it was Arnold Palmer. And he said, John, when I grew up in, what the city? Latrobe. He said we had little ponds, rivers, and we used to cut tree branches that were curved like a hockey stick. I said, bullshit, it was like a golf club. Give me that. So he did this. He played, I'll never forget it. And, so that was special, and that was Pennsylvania, So these things I remember. Yeah, so anyway. Enough said. Thank you again. Yeah. So, and believe me, for a lot of you out there, it wasn't your skill or abilities, it was the Croatian genes that made you who you are and why you're here. Good.
John Mayasich. Congratulations, just Stephen. You're a good speaker. Get people loud and enjoying. Okay.
Stay right there for a second, John. Before you leave there, John, how are you supposed to follow that? It's like following Johnny Carson.
Oh, Pittsburgh.
We had the first one in Cleveland. When you're in Pittsburgh, I don't care who you root for, you're a Steeler fan right there, every one of our inductees. And those terrible towels and those Steeler hats are courtesy right there of the man, Kevin Colbert, 21 years with the Steelers as their general manager. He put together a team that won 2 Super Bowl championships and 9 division titles. Kevin, thank you for the terrible towel. He's here to support his friend, Tim Grgurich. I have 16 terrible towels at home. Camouflage, black, pink, fur, everything. I got them all. God, I love the Steelers. Anybody who grew up with an older brother or older brothers can relate to our next inductee. Fritzie Zivic followed in the footsteps of 4 older brothers who all boxed. 2 of them actually fought in the Olympics in 1920 in Antwerp, Pete and Jack. But it was Fritzie who had the most success. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead here. I am jumping ahead. What am I doing there? Come on. Now you know why I'm retired. They threw me out the door at CNN and they threw me out the door at Fox. All right, I got to find Paul Tomasovich's intro. Here it is right here. I'm sorry, Steve, and I'm sorry, Paul, the late Paul Tomasovich. We talked about who we're recognizing. In our first round 2 years ago, Joe Sakic won the Stanley Cup. We had a couple World Series champs, Roger Maris, Mickey Lolich. We had some really famous people. Masters champ Fred Couples, but we wanted to introduce and induct athletes that played in sports that a lot of us can relate to, and some of us have played ourselves in our lives. And Paul Tomasovich was one of the greatest softball players, not just in Pennsylvania, but in the country. He was a bad boy at the plate when his nickname was King Kong. He was inducted into the Slow Pitch Hall of Fame back in 1992. He averaged over 100 RBIs and 40-plus homers a year in a career that began in 1956 and continued all the way through 1980. Think of how long that was playing at that level. He was absolutely unbelievable. He led his teams to 7 national championship series, and they won 4 of them. He was MVP in one of those. 5 times he was named All-American. Big Paul was not just a winner on the softball field. After he stopped playing, he was one of the most respected and highly sought after officials at the high school and collegiate level in a variety of sports here in the Pittsburgh area. Paul is a legend here in the Western Pennsylvania and actually tri-state area. And to accept his honor tonight is his grandson, Rick Frost.
John, you're a tough act to follow. I was an ice hockey goalie for 7 years. I wouldn't want to face your slap shot even today, so you're a tough guy. Hvala, Dobar večer. Thank you. Good evening. I'm honored to be accepting the induction in the Croatian American Sports Hall of Fame on behalf of my grandfather, Paul Tomasovich. Paul's father, Mile, came from Mayasich, Croatia, and his mother, Katja, from Goucher, Croatia. Paul is being honored today for his accomplishments as an amateur softball player. He didn't have the opportunity to play baseball growing up because his Fifth Avenue district in Pittsburgh didn't have a baseball team. So what did he do instead? He played football and basketball, and he was awesome at it. He was so good, he got a call to receive an honor to his house. And what do you know? His mother picked up the phone, who didn't know any English, exclusively Croatian, and she thought he was in trouble and enacted some old world discipline. Well, it turned out okay. She went to the ceremony and he received the award, and she realized, like, wow, he's a special athlete. He actually received a scholarship to go and play sports in college, but his life circumstances prevented him from doing that, and he went to the Army instead. After he got done with the Army, he decided to do a great job with slow pitch softball and get after that. Slow pitch softball is the hot sport of its day. It's somewhat like pickleball today as far as its popularity and fast growth. And it was really interesting because it was, like they mentioned, it was something that everyone could play. So both the athletic and non-athletic can play, and you could picture yourself doing what they're doing. Pittsburgh became a hotbed of softball activity with leagues springing up all around the country, and Pittsburgh having some incredible athletes and incredible teams. The Amateur Softball Association became the go-to league for those who pursue the sport for the love of the game and drew crowds of fans. After Paul left the Army, he got serious with softball, and he joined the Skip Hogan Athletic Club and Jones Sports Shop team. He was amazing. The Amateur Softball Association National Tournament, which is a softball World Series, he powered his teams, as we heard, to 4 national titles, winning the MVP once. He was named, as we heard, All-American 5 times, and his teams had an amazing 38-7 record in the ASA National Championships. Paul was inducted into the National Softball Hall of Fame in 1992. Amongst King Kong, he also had the name Superman, which we love to, name him as well. He achieved myth-like status in the sport, not only being able to move around the field and playing amazing defense, but he was really known for his incredible ability to just crush the softball and knock it out of the park. His tape measure home runs were the stuff of legends. He averaged more than 100 RBIs and 40 homers a season throughout his career. Quoting the Pittsburgh Quarterly with a few examples, in a game at Brookline's Moorfield, he blasted a 12-inch softball that struck a light tower on its gravity-defying flight out of the ballpark. In another game at Greenfield's McGee Field, Tomasovich, a right-handed batter, once hammered the ball the length of a football field over the goalpost and onto Greenfield Avenue. Off the field, as we heard, Paul was known for being a leader in his community via local unions, working for the Pittsburgh SEAL organization, refereeing every sport under the sun, and passing his love in sports and life lessons on to his 7 daughters and 28 grandchildren. He passed on so much wisdom to me, and also his stories about his Croatian heritage that inspired me to visit Croatia. Several years ago, I journeyed to Croatia, becoming the first member of our family in over 100 years to set foot on that soil since Paul's parents immigrated to America. I had an incredible experience, feeling like I was coming home after years of being my way, and my cousin Lauren had a similar experience as well. It was just so amazing. The land, it was so beautiful. I mean, people talk about how amazing the land is, but the people are what's key. They were what really blew me away. I saw my grandfather in them, tall, strong, tough, family-oriented, extremely athletic, and they spoke directly. They held nothing back. Anyone that knew Paul knew he would tell you exactly what was on his mind with zero hesitation. Even though he never got the chance to travel there, I felt he exemplified the amazing attributes of the country and culture, and I was grateful to be able to share my pictures and stories with him when I returned. I'm blessed to have had Paul as my grandfather, passing on his love of sports and Croatian heritage and pride to myself, his wife, his 7 daughters, and 28 grandchildren. I know he'll be very grateful to have received this award, recognizing his athletic accomplishments in celebration of his Croatian heritage. On behalf of Paul and our family, thank you to the Croatian American Sports Hall of Fame. Hvala lijepa. Thank you very much. Big Paul. All right. Very good.
All right, now we can talk about those Rudy Ziviches I was hanging out with last night. I jumped the gun. Sorry, I'm so excited. I told you the Rudy. I told you about his two older brothers. Fritzie had the most success in the ring. He was an amazing man, and he was a self-proclaimed brawler, a true street fighter that really turned into an outstanding boxer, and he attributed his success to growing up in what was then the rough and tumble Lawrenceville neighborhood. Now, I was just in Lawrenceville this afternoon. A bunch of us went over to Clemente Museum. That place is trendy and awesome. But back in the 1920s, you didn't want to go out after dark. His famous quote was, "You either had to fight or stay in the house." My brothers and I went out. Sounds like a bunch of hard-headed Croatians. We all know a couple of those, don't we? Early in his career, which began in the 1930s, he defeated Charles Burley, handing him one of only 12 losses in Burley's career, and he won 84 fights in that one. He then lost a heartbreaking split decision against another Pittsburgh boxing legend, world light heavyweight champ Billy Conn. And after that, he ran off a string of wins against former champions, Johnny Jadek, Jackie Burke, and Sammy Angat. That put him into a world title bout against welterweight champ Henry Hammerin' Hank Armstrong. And Fritzie was a 4-1 underdog. Nobody thought he had a shot in this fight. He ended up winning a 15-round decision. Matter of fact, it was one of the few that Armstrong ever lost. A year later, in a title defense rematch, he knocked him out with a TKO, the first time Armstrong had ever been knocked out in a match, even though it was a TK1. That was in the 12th round. He had gotten better and better and better. He continued to fight until 1946. He fought 7 future Hall of Famers and 9 champions. He lost a tough setback to the great Sugar Ray Robinson. And a lot of boxing fans will tell you Sugar Ray, still widely considered pound for pound, maybe the best boxer of all time. But he rebounded and took out the raging bull, Jake LaMotta. He was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 1993 with a career record of 158 wins, 9 draws, 64 losses. Over half of those wins were by knockout. We lost Fritzie back in 1984. But here to remember him is his daughter, Jan Zivic. Come on up here, Jan. You know they're going to be hooting and hollering over there.
I'll be short. I went to Pitt, and I just wanted to mention the ball game. There are a lot of things about Dad that all of our 3 tables are very proud of. I would like to mention just a couple that you probably don't know. First of all, in your programs, you will find that my name is Mary Ann. That's a mistake. My name is Jan, or Janice, and when Dad won the title 2 years before I was born, I had 2 older brothers, and Mom got poster-sized pictures of Dad with his belt on, which we have at our table tonight. If anyone would like to see it, we brought Dad's title belt. But anyway, the thing I want to tell you about Dad is he was a poet, or he thought so. So on each of the pictures of him that Mother put in the kids' bedrooms, my name's Janice Marie, but that didn't work in his poetry, so he wrote on my picture, "To my darling Janice Mitzi, with all my love, your daddy Fritzie." True story. And to this day, many of my uncles who are sadly gone called me Mitzi because that's what Dad named me, and they adored him. That's the second thing I'd like to say about Dad. He was pretty tough in the ring. He was known for a variety of things in the ring, and I'm happy to say most of it was that he won. And he used to say what was already quoted, but people would say to him, you know, "You're so nice, you're so friendly." He was actually quite charming, and they would say, "How'd you get like that in the ring?" And he said, "Well, I didn't go in to play the piano." True story. but what I'm trying to say is there were a lot of things about Dad people loved. My mother, who loved him. Sorry. So I went to Pitt. I used to teach at Upper St. Clair, and I moved to San Francisco. Just this month, I've been cleaning out my office and finding hundreds of pictures and thousands of pieces of paper. And one was a letter Dad wrote to Mom in 1931, in which he said, I love San Francisco. We came out here to have, he had a fight, and he said, I have seen the city, and I absolutely love it, and we should move here someday. So I did, in 1972. And, the thing about that letter was it was very affectionate, and he signed it with all my love, Helen, I will love you forever. He was so affectionate. If you look at all our family pictures, both of his sons, who are not Robert and John, which is what's in the program, but Chuck and Fritz, close enough. I actually think the program says his father's name was John, but Mike wasn't Joseph. So just a few errors in the program. Anyway, so what I wanted to tell you about Dad was he was a poet. He liked to write. I have 9 years of journals Dad wrote every single day. So those of you here who like to journal, and you know how sometimes it's difficult, every night he would come home and say, he was at Stoken's bar, and I'll mention that in a minute. He said, Helen thinks maybe I had too many beers tonight. So he did write honest things. And so he was a poet. He was very affectionate. He liked to write. And when I lost my cool for a second there talking about my mom, I want to talk about one other thing. We do have 3 tables over there, 117 and whatever the next one is. Let's hear it, folks. At the table are 4 of his grandchildren, and I would like them to stand up. We have Dad Fritz, my brother Fritz, and Fritz, my nephew. Fritz. And Fritz's sister, Jennifer, is Fritz and Jennifer, Chuck's children. Sarah, on the other side, Sarah, is Fritz's daughter, Sarah. And beside her is my daughter, Jessie. So Dad, 4 of his 7 grandchildren. Also, among his other brothers, Pete was named. And the Pete lineage fills the 3rd table. I can't name them all, but they're all related. Now, one more thing about Dad, for Pittsburghers who know, Pete Zivic had a bar, and 2 blocks down, the Stokens, John and Mary Stoken, had a bar. Well, Helen Stoken married Fritzie Zivic just blocks apart. They were brought up with parents who owned bar restaurants. And in the Stoken family, one of my mother's brothers was Lou, and Lou, as some of you may know, was one of Dad's seconds in the corner with him, fixing the cuts and wiping down, et cetera. And tonight, Helene and Diane are Lou's daughters, and they're here tonight. So I leave you just 1 or 2 statistics. One is, if you haven't been there, you've heard about Madison Square Gardens in New York. Dad and Henry Armstrong's title fight held the record for the largest sports indoor crowd at that time in the United States. largest crowd. And then they remodeled, and then there became outside huge sports arenas which had thousands, but at that time it was the largest. So I would like to leave you with a picture of Dad. He was a loving, loving father and a charming man. Those of you who knew him loved him or liked him, and we're all here because we loved or like one of these inductees, and I'm happy to say we, Zivics on the other side, have met many of them, and we could not be more proud than to be part of this group. Thank you.
There's 23,000, by the way, inside Madison Square Garden for that fight. All right, let's keep the love going for the ladies. Our next inductee, a fantastic American athlete, and here to introduce her is the Executive Vice President of the NFCA, Biljana Abel.
Thank you, Jerome. Good evening, everyone. So I am here to introduce and to honor someone who makes running 26.2 miles look like a casual Sunday jog, while the rest of us are just trying to make it to the fridge and back during the commercial breaks. Yes, I am talking about the incredible Kara Goucher. Not only is she an Olympic-level runner, marathoner, all-around superstar, best-selling author, sports broadcaster, but she also manages to represent the Croatian American community with the same energy and pride. Kara, you're basically our version of a superhero, only instead of a cape, you've got a pair of running shoes that probably have seen more miles than most of our cars. Let's be honest. When most of us think of running, it's usually because we're late or being chased, hopefully only late. But Kara, she runs because she loves it. Imagine that. And not just a few laps around the block. Kara has been crushing races around the globe, making it look easy, while the rest of us are still trying to figure out how to catch our breath. From the NCAA to the Olympics, she's proven again and again that there's nothing she can't outrun, except maybe rest days. But what makes Kara even more extraordinary is how she wears her Croatian American heritage with pride, showing us that you can chase your dreams while still staying true to your roots. And let's be honest, being Croatian, she probably got a bit extra of toughness, powered by love of cevapi and sarma, or maybe that's just me. Actually, I'll tell you a secret. She told me she loves the lobster pasta. Either way, she has made her Croatian community proud at every turn. And if you think her running is impressive, let's not forget her commitment to standing up for what's right, whether it's advocating for clean sport and supporting fellow athletes. Kara has gone above and beyond to make a difference off the track too. She's a champion in every sense of the word. So today, we're not just celebrating Kara's incredible athletic achievements, we're celebrating her story, her legacy, and her impact both on and off the track. Kara, you're an inspiration to all of us, and I'm so proud to present you with the Croatian American Sports Hall of Fame Award. You've shown us what it means to push limits, to stay true who you are, and to always aim for the finish line with heart and grit. Congratulations, Kara. Keep inspiring us. Though no promises about joining you on any of those marathon runs anytime soon.
I was just kidding, but yeah. Thank you so much. This is such a huge honor, and this has been a very special experience for me. I was joking with my aunt last night that my next tattoo is going to be a Croatian flag, and she's not necessarily a tattoo enthusiast, but she said she could maybe get behind that. So this has been really fun for me. I am Croatian because my father came to America from Croatia when he was 13 years old. He was born in Zablace, and he came over and he was 13 with my aunt, who was 15 at the time, my aunt Daurka Grgas. She can wave to everybody. And their mother to join his father and his brother who had already come. And my father met my mother in college, so this is very appropriate, my Midwest mom and my Croatian father. And I came to be, along with my two sisters. 8 days before my 4th birthday, my father actually was killed by a drunk driver. And it's been a huge loss in my life, but my dad was a very good soccer player and an athlete. And I think growing up hearing the stories of him and his passion for sport really allowed me to be an athlete, to be competitive. It gave me permission to care about sports. And it gave me permission to be there, just as much as my step-siblings, just as much as anyone else. And I'm super grateful that what I remember about him, which is him coming home from soccer matches and having owies, allowed me to be who I am and allowed me to chase the dreams that I have chased. I grew up in northern Minnesota. After my father died, we moved to Minnesota to be with my mom's parents, and my grandpa got me into running. And it's just been the greatest gift that was ever given to me, honestly. It's taken me so far all around the world, but it's also connected me to my dad. When I was in college and I started to win national titles, my mom had been remarried, and I went from Grgurich to Grgas-Wheeler, and everyone just knew me as Wheeler. But when I was in college and I started to win national titles, I started to seek that longing to connect to my dad. And I asked to be called by my full legal name, which was Grgas-Wheeler.
Wonderful.
Yeah. In 2008, I ran my first marathon, and I ran the New York City Marathon. And there was a lot of pressure and attention, and it was an overwhelming experience. About halfway through the marathon, I started to feel like I was in over my head. And I just had this sense of calm. And I imagined my father. I had never pictured him ever when I was doing sports before. And I had this voice in my head saying, you can do this. And I was able to recover and finish 3rd place and set the American course record. And yeah, thanks. I'm not trying to brag, really. And then in 2012, after I made my 2nd Olympic team, I competed in London, and we got to go with my family over to Croatia. It was my 2nd time being there. So my dad has really been intertwined throughout my athletic life. And even now as a broadcaster, I feel like I belong, and I feel like a lot of that is because that groundwork that he laid, that I could play sports, I could do whatever I wanted to do. There's been a few times in my life when I really wish my dad was there. When I got married, when I made my first Olympic team, and tonight. I think he would be so excited to meet all of you. He would be bragging so much. And this is such a huge honor for me and for him. And I really, really appreciate all of you. And I really, really appreciate my Aunt Daurka for being here with me. And thanks, you guys. You're allowing me to get another tattoo. So thank you.
It must be said that at Mirko Grgas's wedding, Kara's father to her mother, Josip Grgasen was the best man and he's the patron donor of tonight's event. Thanks, Kara.
What an emotional acceptance speech that was. Congratulations. There aren't too many dry eyes in this house tonight. All right, so I'm going to try to change the subject entirely here. Thanks, Kara. What are you doing to me? Look at Jim Laslavic laughing at me. Only a broadcaster. I'm sure Bill Hillgrove's going, how are you going to spin this one? So our next inductee is the answer to several sports trivia questions. The most interesting one I found was who is the only winner of the Heisman Trophy that was not born an American citizen? Tim Tebow was born overseas, but his parents were on a Christian mission trip. RG3, Robert Griffin III, he was born in Japan to parents who were serving in the American military. Frank Sinkwich was born outside of Zagreb to Croatian parents. And when he was 2 years old, his folks came over on the boat like so many of our parents and grandparents did, and they eventually settled in Youngstown, Ohio. After a stellar career in Ohio, how the Buckeyes let him go, I have no idea, but he went south to Georgia, led the freshman team to an undefeated season, and then his varsity career just took off. As a junior, he set SEC records for rushing and total yards, but the numbers don't really tell the whole story. Game 3 his junior season, broke his jaw, did not miss a snap the rest of the season. And then he went on to lead Georgia to an Orange Bowl win over TCU, 139 yards rushing, 240 yards, 43 yards passing, and 3 touchdowns. And remember, he did all this with a broken jaw. Another trivia answer, the very first football player to wear a face mask. Somebody decided to attach a piece of round wood to a leather helmet. Why they thought that was a good idea in the sport of football, I don't know. So the next year, more SEC records, this time for passing and total yards. A Rose Bowl win over UCLA. Scored the game's only touchdown. Played the entire game, not with one, but with 2 sprained ankles. He was an absolutely unbelievable player on the football field. They nicknamed him the Croatian Crusher. That is how dominant he was on the field. After that season, second All-American year in a row. He made the All-American team, and then he won that coveted Heisman Trophy. And what was amazing is after that, he was named the #1 athlete in the United States, beating out Ted Williams of the Red Sox, who won the Triple Crown that year. Imagine beating out Ted Williams, who won the Triple Crown. Detroit selected Sinkwich first round of the NFL draft, right away paid dividends. All-Pro his first 2 years. Second year, NFL Most Valuable Player. Then his knee started acting up. He hurt his knee while he was in the military before playing in pro ball. And 2 more years with the Lions after that, 3 years with the All-American Football Conference. Then Frank hung up his helmet for good. Another trivia answer, by the way, he was the first Georgia player and first SEC player to win the Heisman. First Georgia player to have his number retired, one of only 4. He's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, the College Football Hall of Fame, the State of Georgia Sports Hall of Fame, the Orange Bowl Hall of Fame, and now he is in the Croatian American Sports Hall of Fame. His grandson, Frank III, couldn't be with us, but did accept via videotape.
Thank you, Jerome. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Frank Sinkwich III, and I am the grandson of Frank Sinkwich Sr., who is being inducted into the Croatian American Sports Hall of Fame tonight. On behalf of the entire Sinkwich family, I would like to say thank you for bestowing this honor upon him. I know my grandfather would be very proud and very humbled by this recognition. I think it would mean as much to him as winning the Heisman Trophy at his alma mater, the University of Georgia, where he earned the nicknames Fireball Frankie, Flatfoot Frankie, and my favorite, the Croatian Crusher. I know my grandfather was proud of his Croatian heritage, and I know he was very proud of his American citizenship and all this great country has to offer. In fact, at the outbreak of World War II, Frank Sinkwich Sr. enlisted in the United States Marine Corps, attended boot camp, and was allowed to accept the Heisman Trophy while wearing his Marine Corps dress blues. Unfortunately, he never served in the Marines because he was medically discharged for ironically being flat-footed. Again, I know my grandfather was very proud of his heritage, and I know he was proud of his hometown of Youngstown, Ohio. On many occasions, he would take the family to visit our great-grandparents and distant cousins in Youngstown, Ohio, where we would be able to taste a little bit of Croatian culture. I remember many evenings at the Croatian home, dining on kielbasa and other, I guess, indigenous dishes to Croatia, and enjoying all the stories we heard about what my great-grandparents called the old country. On behalf of the entire Sinkwich family, I would like to once more thank you for bestowing this honor upon my grandfather, and congratulations to all the other inductees.
Since I live in the Atlanta area, I'll be hand delivering that award up to the Sinkwich family up in Athens, Georgia. Although, Kevin Colbert, I can't not guarantee that I won't wear that hat on the plane back, I can tell you that. You know, about half of this crowd here has ties to the Pitt Panthers. Growing up in Western PA, a lot of respect to the tradition-rich university, their football and their basketball programs. Down south, I root for anything from the Keystone State, but in full disclosure, I grew up a diehard Penn State fan. So we are about to induct a Penn State Nittany Lion. Years ago, I went to San Diego on vacation. It was like 30 years. It was a long time ago. I'm at a red light. I look up. I see a billboard promoting one of the local news broadcast teams. There's two news anchors, a weather anchor, and this big smiling face, and it says, "Sports with Jim Laslavic." And I said, "Laslavic, it's not as long as Juranovic, but that's got to be a Croatian name." And I thought, hey, wait a minute. Didn't there used to be a really good linebacker at Penn State named Jim Laslavic? Sure enough, it was. Jim Laslavic was a stud right here at Etna, then made his way up to State College, and one of those just terrific linebackers in a long line of linebackers under Joe Paterno that made it linebacker U up there at Penn State. Drafted by the Lions in '73, played 10 years in the National Football League with Detroit, San Diego, and Green Bay. Then when he hung up his helmet, he turned on his microphone. He is a legendary broadcaster in the city of San Diego, 36 years. When he retired, the Coronado Rotary Club celebrated Jim Laslavic Day for all the work he has done to raise money. He was the driving force for a golf tournament that raised millions out there for charity. Penn State, even though he played there a little bit long ago, they still remember him and loved him. They changed the name of their World Campus scholarships to honor Jim's down-to-earth, humble spirit. It is now the Jim Laslavic World Campus Scholarships. Please welcome a winner on the field, at work, in the community, a member of the Croatian Fraternal Union, and now a member of the Croatian American Sports Hall of Fame, San Diego's own, and the pride of Etna, Jim Laslavic.
Wow.
Stop.
I have done a number of introductions over the years being a broadcaster. That was phenomenal. Could you do it again? I'm already crying. I cry at these functions. And the over-under was like 40 seconds. How long before I shed a tear? And I think my niece Janet probably won. She took the under easily. Thank you so much. This is so nice to be here with all of you. And I've enjoyed the speakers so far. It's just phenomenal to hear their stories and see their accomplishments. I wrote a few notes, and I'm going to try to stick to them because it's rather brief. But I want to recognize my high school teammates. We played at Etna High School, which is no longer there. It's a merger now. But a few of them decided to join me. And Jim, Dave, Bobby, Tommy, thank you for being here today, and thank you for being there then. My senior year, all these guys had graduated. My senior year, we went 0-8-1. That's in 0 wins, 8 losses, 1 tie. In the tie game, I scored an extra point to tie the game. We tied Sharpsburg, our arch rival. It was the only point I scored the whole season. We were shut out 4 straight weeks because these guys had all graduated. They weren't there for me as a senior, but they're there for me tonight, so thank you very much. So we visited a few sites around town, and it just reminded me how special a place Pittsburgh is. Pittsburgh really is someplace special, and I have a connection to Lodge Number 1 and Lodge Number 4, CFU. My grandparents were members, and I was a member of Lodge 4. And my grandparents came from the old country, and I really appreciate the sacrifice they made. They were comfortable where they were, but they made the effort to come to this country, didn't speak the language, made sure their kids got educations and their grandkids got educations. And my father always preached the importance of getting an education. And I do appreciate that. And that's one of the things I try to encourage everybody to do. I want to acknowledge the other influence in my life, my sister Pat, my sister Joanne, my brother Joe back there. Thank you so much for helping pave the way. I was the baby brother, and I was the total pain in the ass, I know. But you guys did a great job of raising me, and I appreciate your help along the way. Thank you to my two kids who are here. They made the trip from San Diego. Actually, my son's working in New York City. James, and my daughter Haley is a teacher in San Diego. And I appreciate you being here very much. And to wrap things up, I'm going to make sure, because I'm completely out of order here. But anyway, I want to thank my wife, Susan, who also at Etna High School, and my brother-in-law, Bill Shooker. They have something in common. They were both class valedictorians. We had a lot to, we looked up at them. But Bill was the one who nominated me for this recognition, and I appreciate that very much. So Bill is a PhD in mechanical engineering from Carnegie Mellon, Dr. Shooker. And Susan went on to graduate school at Michigan, so I appreciate, Bill, your efforts on my behalf. And Susan, what can I say? The over-under was 30 seconds. I barely made it. Thank you. Wait, this is my better side.
All right, hit your line.
Hey.
I just want to tell Jim and Cara, there is no crying at the Croatian American Sports Hall of Fame going forward, okay? We can't be doing this. Our next inductee could not be with us tonight because he is being honored at his last coaching stop at Ohio University. He's more well known for being the head coach at Nebraska. Frank Solich, I'm going to bring somebody up here, Jim Kresnik, in just a minute to talk about Frank, but I just wanted to say that Nebraska is known for fantastic football. Bob Devaney was one of their legendary coaches. Tom Osborne, legendary coach. He followed Tom. Frank Solich won more games in his first year, 6 years in Lincoln, than either one of those two legends did. But in this what have you done for me lately college football, they let Frank go. And in my opinion, it's the biggest mistake that school ever made because they haven't been the same football program ever since. Nebraska has just stepped down. They're kind of on their way back right now. They almost beat Ohio State today, but they didn't. But they haven't been the same since Frank left, and he turned Ohio U around. So because he had such success at Nebraska, we have a Nebraska native, Jim Kresnik, that wants to talk about Coach Solich. Jim, come on up.
Thank you very much, Jerome. My name is Jim Kresnik from Omaha, Nebraska. Came here via Phoenix, Arizona, where I spend my winters. So you wonder where I got my suntan. First of all, I want to thank the CFU, especially Ed Peso and Bernadette Lukatich, for the social event last night, for being staunch supporters of the NFCA, and also for providing the music last night and this evening, so thank you very much. Also want to thank Jerome Juranovich for being the MC. He does a good job, doesn't he? Thank you very much, Jerome. I want to thank Tom Steach from our committee for nominating Frank Solich. Solich is from Cleveland. Tom is from Cleveland. You know, the tie. I'd like to also thank our the local committee here in Pittsburgh, headed by Matt Fronich and his committee. So thank you very much for the work you guys did. Frank Solich. Boy, was he tough. Woo. Frank Solich was known as Fearless Frankie. No taller than about like this. Went to Nebraska. Wasn't recruited, but he went to Nebraska with one of his teammates from Holy Name in Cleveland. And Bob Devaney, the coach at the time, was recruiting this one guy, whoever he was, he never made it. But he was recruiting this guy, and he was watching this film. And he said, well, who's this number 45 that's doing all the running and, you know, eating up all the yards and scoring all the touchdowns? And the recruiting kid said, that's Frank Solich. So Devaney told him, he says, when you get back to Cleveland, he says, make sure you have the coach send me some film on this guy. And I want to talk to Solich. And this guy said, well, that's him right here. True story. Bob Devaney gave him a full ride on the spot. True story. Called him fearless. If you're a good football fan and you follow professional football and you know who Christian McCaffrey is, I guarantee you, and Mike or Mark May, you can put this on ABC 15 in Phoenix, Arizona, because I watch you every Saturday night. But Frank Solich was not recruited, like I said. If he added about 5 or 6 more inches to the top of him and another 25 pounds, if you know what Christian McCaffrey does in the NFL today, he would be a Frank Solich of 50, 60 years ago, believe me. When Frankie came to Nebraska, he was only 155 pounds, so what he did was he had the trainer tape 8-pound weights onto his buttocks, put on a pair of gym shorts that were extra or triple extra large, so they, you know, he'd hide the weights. So he got on the scale, and he was like 168 pounds, 170 pounds when he weighed in at Nebraska. And that was Frank Solich, because he wanted to play. Frank was the first Husker in the history of the school to rush for 200 yards. First one ever. And we had some good ones there. He was a workout freak, pumped iron every day, ran every day. As a matter of fact, up until the time of having a heart attack 2 years ago in Ohio, he was pumping iron and working out on a daily basis. Frank's final game was in the Orange Bowl against Alabama. And Alabama just scored late in the fourth quarter, and Solich was the deep man on the receiving team. And, of course, Frankie, he just run like a rocket, man. So they kicked off. Frankie got the ball. He ran about 15 yards. All of a sudden, he tore an ACL. And if you remember this game, and you know why they called him fearless, he hopped about 10 yards. And the Alabama players, they all stopped and looked at him, and nobody hit him until he just went down. But that's the kind of football player he was. When Tom Osborne retired, and you know Tom Osborne, one of the greatest coaches in college football, I say that wholeheartedly. Tom Osborne handpicked Frank Solich to be his successor. How many times has that happened? Following 6 years as being the Husker coach, like Jerome said, he had more wins than Osborne and Devaney in those 5 years. Frank had a 10-3 record. An athletic director by the name of Steve Peterson fired him with a 10-3 record. Fired him. Not too soon after that, Steve Peterson got fired. Later on, Steve Peterson came to Pittsburgh, University of Pittsburgh, where he was the AD here, and eventually got fired at Pitt. And I can tell you this, a lot of people always say, well, what the hell's going on with Nebraska? What's been happening with Nebraska? When Solich got fired, this is the truth. And Mark May, you can say this on Channel 15, ABC. When Solich got fired, that was the beginning of the downfall of Nebraska football, and it hasn't recovered yet, but damn near did today against Ohio State. Solich never returned to Nebraska after he was fired. You know, he was embarrassed having a 10-3 record and he get fired. But 3 years ago, at the Outland Trophy presentation, Frank Solich was recognized as the recipient of the Tom Osborne Legacy Award, which is a big award in the state of Nebraska. Guys like Bobby Bowden from Florida State, Barry Switzer from Oklahoma. These are some of the guys. Fisher DeBerry from the Air Force Academy. These are some of the guys that got this award. Frankie came to this award, got a standing O for 10 minutes. Wow. For 10 minutes. During the Colorado game about a month and a half ago in Lincoln, Frankie came back again. He was presented his Hall of Fame. His Hall of Fame plaque award that's going to be officially presented in December. And that's what they're doing tonight in Athens, Ohio, at Ohio University. I called Frankie on the phone before I left home. I said, hey, Frank, you want me to say anything? You know, he's a nice guy. And Steve, you know that. You talk to him. He says, just tell him how appreciative I am. I'm glad to be accepted. Tell him I really appreciate it. Tell him I'm honored to receive this award. And he said he had one regret. I said, what the hell is that? He says, you know, I left Cleveland when I was 18 years old. And he says, I stayed in Nebraska for about 35 years and then went to Ohio. And he says, now I'm in Idaho. But he said, never had the opportunity to find out from my parents where our family came from. And he says, I'm trying to get people to write letters to find out where the Soliches came from. And I told him about Robert Jaron in Shaker Heights and right outside of Cleveland. But Solich said, if I could find that out, I'd be there tomorrow. So he said he's honored to receive this award, and he's really, God, he would like to have been here. Believe me what I'm telling you. He retired 2 years ago from Ohio University because of a heart problem, which, of course, put a stop to his working out. Frank is currently an advisor to the Ohio University Athletic Department. And before I finish this, I promised somebody that I would say this. When we were nominating on our nominating committee for recipients for the Hall of Fame, the name of Grgurich came up. I said, who the hell is that? You know, I'm thinking about all the, I heard Laslavic and Rudy Tomjanovich and all these people. I said, who the hell is this gal? So Dino Matovich, he nominated her, and he said, this gal is really qualified. Okay. So I went home after the conversation, and I Googled her name, and I recommend you guys do this. You folks do this. Google her name. I read this bio on her. I said, this can't be true. So I had to read it a second time. And by God, it's true. So there she is. So I told you I'd say something good about you. But Gil's got a hell of a bio. Believe me what I'm telling you. Google her name. You'll be surprised. So thank you very much on behalf of Frank Solich, the new recipient to the Croatian Sports Hall of Fame.
Yeah, you did. I just got to throw one thing in there. When Solich went to Ohio U, they were a dog program. They weren't winning at all. And within 4 years, he had them winning. 11 bowl games in 16 years and 4 division titles. Right now, the Bobcats play at Frank Solich Field. That's how beloved he is in Athens, Ohio. Steve, I know you wanted to say a few words before we get to our next inductee.
Right. Okay, Tommy Schaefer, come up. Dr. Joe Cindrich, linebacker for Indiana, Legacy Award winner and a platinum sponsor for tonight, was going to be here, couldn't make it because of a little procedure. But he was our Legacy Award winner last year, Dr. Joe Cindrich. But Tommy Schaefer from Uniontown, a boys club that Dr. Cindrich supports too.
Good evening. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Tommy Schaefer. I have a very bad cold this evening. However, The gentleman who took the award for the softball player said it was a hard act to follow. I would say that our MC tonight is top-notch. And as far as that young whippersnapper hockey player from Minnesota, I really think he was a comedian. I need some light here. I'm very proud of my Croatian heritage, and I'm also very proud of my grandmother, who was the local fraternal president for 35 years in Uniontown, Pennsylvania, Lodge 72. Joe's asked me to read a letter verbatim, which I will, thank you. And
I'm here to serve.
but before that, I would like to tell you how I met Joe Cindrich. I got a call one day from an utter stranger who explained to me that when his mother died, my grandmother raised him. At that point, my grandmother had 9 kids. She still raised him, and my grandfather. He blossomed at that point. He became an all-state and all-American high school football player. He got a full ride at Pitt. He went on to be a coach, and then he went on to play, he was a professor for several universities. He retired from Cal Berkeley. He was honored by the White House, by President Bill Clinton and Al Gore, Education Secretary Richard Riley, and National Security Advisor Anthony Lake as a special celebration of American leaders of ethnic descent for their commitment to promoting education in the United States and in the globe, across the globe, Joe served as vice president of the Northern California Croatian Scholarship Fund, which currently provides scholarships for over 50 people in Croatia and Bosnia. Joe also served as vice president of the National Federation of Croatian American in the Western region. Additionally, Joe was one of the founders and former president of the National Federation of Croatian Americans in Washington, D.C. In 1976, he was appointed as an executive position with U.S. Department of Agriculture and Deputy Commissioner of the Office of Intergovernmental Affairs, Regional Director of Highway and Safety. He was assigned to California, Arizona, Nevada, Hawaii, Guam, American Samoa, and Northern Mariana Islands. And lastly, he served as a chairman and board of trustees in Palo Alto, California for the Elks Club. He raised $20 million debt-free to build a facility, a sports facility for kids. I would tell you that recently he's put my boys' club in his trust. Well, my boys' club, my father's really, lasted for 6 decades. And I'm proud of him for what he's done for my boys' club and for all kids. Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for those good words. Now, if I could only figure out how to shut this thing off. Wait. Oh,
Yeah,
we're
there's
taking
some
all
of
the good
those
stuff
yours.
there. Oh, no.
Some of those ones mine.
Okay.
One's mine.
All right, we'll stop right there. How's that? Right, you're done, right? You don't need them anymore. I need them all.
That one's mine.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Years ago during my CNN days, I ran into Andy Van Slyke at the airport, and he said, I got a project for you. And he goes, I want you to be the on-course announcer for the Mario Lemieux Celebrity Golf Tournament. And in this town, when Mario has an ask, the answer is always yes. It doesn't even have to be this town, anywhere in this country. Mario Lemieux says, can you come up? And I said, absolutely. A great event filled with, you would not believe, if you weren't a Hall of Famer, you were an all-star. There's Gretzky, there's Lemieux, there's Elway, there's Marino, Johnny Bench, Joe Morgan, Cordell was there, the bus was there. I mean, it was just a plethora of all-stars. And they always had a lot of really entertaining functions in the evening to take care of the players, the sponsors, and people like me that ran around with my jaw dropping because of all these superstar athletes. One night I'm in line at the Civic Arena. They were having a banquet. Kool and the Gang was playing. Fantastic group, not as good as our Tamburitzans, but they were still very popular. And I'm in line, and I hear this voice behind me say, Jerome, turn around and say hello to a fellow Croatian. And that's when I met our next inductee, and he introduced me to his lovely bride, Mary. Ralph Cindrich was a success at every level athletically, and even more so professionally. I could go on and on about Ralph, and I will in a minute, but he'll be the first to tell you his greatest accomplishment is his beautiful family. For more on that, here is his award-winning television host and producer daughter, Christina Cindrich.
Hello, everyone. I'm Christina Cindrich, and although I can't be there in person today, my heart is absolutely with all of you, especially with my dad, Ralph Cindrich, as he's inducted into the Croatian American Sports Hall of Fame. Growing up, I was in awe of the man my dad was, his dedication to his craft, his boundless energy, and the love he showed for our family were constant reminders of what it means to be great, not just in sports, but in life. He didn't just talk about hard work and integrity, he lived it. Whether it was his time on the field as an NFL linebacker or the countless hours he spent making sure his clients were treated fairly as a sports attorney, my dad has always poured his heart and soul into everything he does. But beyond his career and achievements, what makes my dad truly special is his ability to bring joy to everyone around him. He's the kind of person who can light up a room with his charisma and humor, whether he's proudly wearing a sweatshirt with his granddaughter's photos on it, or sneaking a finger into a birthday cake. My dad knows how to make people laugh. He's a favorite to everyone he meets, not just because of his accomplishments, but because of the warmth and playfulness he brings wherever he goes. He never forgot where he came from, and it's always been clear that the Croatian spirit, the strength, the loyalty, the love of family has been the foundation of everything he does. Even now, as he faces new challenges, my dad's resilience and unwavering spirit continue to inspire me. Dad, I couldn't be prouder to be your daughter. You've always been my hero, and today you are being recognized for everything I have always known you to be. I love you so much, and I hope you soak in every moment of this celebration. You've earned it 100 times over.
He has indeed earned it. You know, he had a remarkable life, born down in Washington, PA. Ralph was a stud wrestler in high school and an even better football player. As a wrestler, made it to the heavyweight championship in state. He pushed it to overtime. The only reason he didn't win, he had 2 broken bones in his hand. How in the world do you wrestle with only one hand? He put the title man, went all the way a title match in overtime and still won it almost with one hand. And he was a better football player. Those 2 sports earned him a scholarship to Pitt. With the Panthers, he won the NCAA Eastern Heavyweight Championship on the mat. And then in football, man, was he a terrific linebacker. One game against UCLA in his first start, 17 tackles. The next year against Oklahoma, 21 tackles in a game. He was All-American in both of those seasons. Played 4 seasons in the NFL, and when he was down in Houston with the Oilers, began working for a law degree. And that's when he left an indelible mark on the NFL as one of the greatest sports agents in history. I'll tell you, he was so beloved by his clients. His first big name client is here tonight to support him, another fantastic Pitt football player, Outland Trophy winner, 2-time Super Bowl champ, Mark May. Stand up, Mark, and say hi. I love Mark May. You know, those Redskins teams, the offensive line they were named the Hogs. You look at that beautiful face. How could he be called a hog now? Come on. Maybe they were talking about Jeff Bostic. I tease because I know Jeff pretty well. Anyway, so he was such a good negotiator. Kevin's predecessors could probably agree with this. The NFL GMs didn't like to see Ralph coming. Man, let me tell you, they knew they were in for a hard battle when Ralph walked in the door. Bill Fralic, another one of our inductees, I'll talk about Bill in a couple of minutes. Bill was drafted number 2 by the Atlanta Falcons. The great Bruce Smith was drafted number 1 overall by the Buffalo Bills. Guess which player got more money? Ralph's client, Bill Fralic, got more money than the number all pick in the draft. Ralph also kind of helped engineer that trade from Herschel Walker from the Dallas Cowboys to the Minnesota Vikings, a handful of players and a whole bunch of draft picks that turned the 90s Cowboys into Super Bowl champions. As a Steeler fan, Ralph, I will never forgive you for making that deal. Cowboys. He got so much money for so many free agents, the USA Today, the newspaper, dubbed him the free agent champ. Two of his former clients are on video. They want to talk to us now, both familiar to Steeler fans in the audience. And the first one, a free agent Ralph got a buku bucks for.
Hello, my name is James Ferrier, and Ralph Cindrich was my NFL agent for 15 years. We shared a journey through 4 NFL contracts, 2 Super Bowl championships, and a lifetime of joyous memories. I can truly say that you were responsible for changing the projection of my career with one little piece of advice. You told me to take a visit to the Pittsburgh Steelers. You also told me that the ownership was really good and the team would take care of me if I played well. Long story short, I signed with the team and the rest is history. Ralph, you will always have a special place in my heart, and now you will forever be in the Croatian Hall of Fame. I love you, love your family, and I am forever thankful for everything that you've done for me. Thank you and congratulations.
Ralph, Dermani Dawson here. Hey, I want to congratulate you for your induction to the Croatian Hall of Fame. Hey, a well-deserved honor, and I appreciate everything that you've done for myself and other players. Congratulations again.
Ralph Cindrich, another superior athlete from Western Pennsylvania and a super successful sports agent. Tonight he joins his 5th Hall of Fame, including the Pitt Football Hall of Fame. To accept on his behalf, his son Mike. Mike, come on up here.
Thank you, everyone. It's an honor to accept this award on behalf of my father, Ralph. My father grew up in a small town, Avella, in Western Pennsylvania. He had 4 siblings, and his parents were both the children of immigrants. My grandma, Stella, from Italy, she was actually born on the boat on the way over. My grandfather from Croatia, AJ, first born in the United States. Times weren't always easy. Sometimes they were tough. Tough times mold tough men. And there weren't too many men tougher than Ralph. His childhood pastimes included hunting, fishing, and getting into fights with the kids from the towns next door. When most kids would go to wrestling camp for a week, my father, Ralph, he would go for several weeks in a row. And in between, when one group of kids would leave and another would come in and no one was there, he would hang out with the chefs. You heard the story about how he wrestled with a broken hand, almost won state championship in high school, and I've seen videos. His hand looked like a noodle hanging there. The only reason why he lost is because he got a penalty for using his other hand to hold on to the jersey. Playing football in the NFL, he was used at one point as a wedge breaker on the kickoff, and at one point he smashed all of his bottom teeth through his bottom lips. Yep. He had busted knees, busted ankle, busted shoulder, and lived most of his adult life with all these injuries. And growing up as a child, I never once heard him complain. He was a wrestling and football star in both high school and college. He was recruited all over the United States. He was recruited by Joe Paterno, who wasn't very happy when he ultimately made the decision to stay at home and play for Pitt. I know they exchanged some not so nice words with each other when Pitt was playing Penn State. Unfortunately, my dad's college football career was plagued by injuries, but that didn't stop him from becoming an All-American and ultimately being drafted by the Atlanta Falcons in the 1972 draft. He didn't stay with the Falcons long, ultimately ended up in New England with the Patriots, And in his first career with the Patriots, first season with the Patriots, he was named 1 week the AP Player of the Week against the Miami Dolphins. He had a short stop in Denver and ultimately finished his NFL career in Houston, where he went to law school. And I was born in Houston while he was at the South Texas College of Law. My dad was a good lawyer, but with his background in sports, he could have been a great agent, and he did become a great agent. And the first agent in the NFL, or one of the first. And one of his first clients joining us tonight, Mark May. By 1985, my dad had some of the top players in the NFL draft. Bill Fralic, who is being honored tonight, was one of them. Al Toon, another. The AP and actually really everyone knew that my dad had a large impact on that draft. His players were determining what players above them were going to ultimately make. And if you hear about Bill Fralic's story, he had a groundbreaking contract that ultimately paid him $150,000 a year for life. He was paid more than the top pick in that draft, which was Bruce Smith. The next decade saw my father negotiating some of the most lucrative deals in the NFL. The Associated Press twice named him one of the top 100 most powerful people in all of sports. You ever heard of The Blind Side? The book, and that ultimately was turned into a movie? That story in part was based on my father and what he did for NFL linemen. You see, before my father got involved with representing players in the NFL, they only cared about quarterbacks and receivers. But who was protecting that quarterback? It was the lineman. And Will Woodford was one lineman who had a contract that was never seen at that time by offensive linemen. One time my father almost came to blows with the coach of an NFL team. One time he brought Bruno Sammartino into his office when a manager was coming in to negotiate a contract. Yeah, they wanted the manager to think that, that his client was potentially going to go to professional wrestling. They got the money for him. There's all kinds of stories. I could sit here for probably hours and tell you stories that my dad has told me over the years, but if you really want to hear him, he has a book, NFL Brawler. Go buy it. I'm sure a lot of you have seen Jerry Maguire. Well, that really embodies what my father was as an agent. His clients weren't just a number to him, weren't just someone that he was going to make money off of. These were his friends. And as you can tell by the people that have spoken tonight, Mark being here, James Ferrier used to come to our house every Christmas Eve. We'd have a Christmas Eve party. And sometimes he'd bring the other players. I remember one year we beat the Browns on Christmas Eve, and he brought Casey Hampton and a bunch of other guys. And I can tell you what, we didn't have any leftovers after that Christmas Eve. We would go to the Pro Bowl with Mark May and his family, Al Toon and his family, other players. Mark took me in the locker room after the Redskins beat the Broncos in the Super Bowl in San Diego in the late 80s. As a young kid, I got to experience what it's like to be in the Super Bowl winning team's locker room. It was quite an experience. Jermani Dawson, who you heard from, I went deer hunting with him on my grandpa's farm out in Cross Creek. So this is how I grew up, and this is the relationship my father had with his clients. They weren't just clients, they were friends, they were family, and they still are. My father would probably tell you that his greatest accomplishment was marrying my mother. Sorry. Marrying my mother and starting a family. You heard from my sister. Well, my father was my midget football coach. When I played baseball, he'd take me to the field and hit baseballs to me. And even though he was always busy with work, he would never miss a game. he would never miss one of his kids' events. And that says a lot about who he was as a person and who he is. He's always been proud of his Italian and Croatian heritage. When I was a child, I went with my family, my grandma Stella, my grandfather AJ. We went on a trip to Europe. Went to Italy, and we also went to the old country in Croatia. And I got to meet my family outside of Zagreb. One of the things my father was doing there at the time was trying to get an NFL game in Yugoslavia. It was Yugoslavia at the time. With the permission of the Roonies, he was negotiating a game, but unfortunately, the Civil War broke out, and that NFL game never happened. My father is extremely honored to accept this award today, and I'm honored to accept it on his behalf. Growing up, he liked to recite poems, memorize and recite poems, and so I'm going to recite the end of a poem that we used to hear as a child, and it really represents who he is as a person, because he paved his own way. He was one of the first agents, and he did it at a time when players needed it. And this poem is The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. And what I'm going to leave you with are the final lines of that poem. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Thank you.
Plenty of these around the house. As a Steeler fan, you can always use another one. Thank you, Mike. Congratulations, Ralph. Love Ralph Cindrich, by the way. Anybody who's met him loves Ralph Cindrich. Our next inductee was another one of Ralph's star clients. We mentioned it earlier, born here in the Berg. Bill Fralic was so dominant at Penn Hills High that he was named to the Pennsylvania All-Century Football Team and also named Male Athlete of the Year by the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette because he won the WPIL Heavyweight Wrestling Championship. Highly recruited all over the country, he decided to stay close to home and go to Pitt. There's a theme going on here. Do you hear it all day? Pitt, Pitt, Pitt. Why not? All-American in 3 of his seasons, unanimous All-American 2 of those. He also became the first offensive lineman to finish in the top 10 in Heisman voting 2 years in a row. How good do you have to be as an offensive lineman to get Heisman votes? The first time I saw Bill play in person, keep in mind, back then we didn't have a plethora of these 24-hour sports networks and every game wasn't on TV. I went down to the Backyard Brawl in Morgantown, and I saw Bill walk out onto the field. He had his helmet on, the pads, you know, he's got those pads on his forearms. And I said, my Lord, that man is a beast. I said, there is no question he is going to be a first-round pick. Now I understand what all the hype is about. And we heard the term, you hear it all the time now, pancake block. Well, guess where that came from? The way he flattened all those defensive linemen when he was playing at the University of Pittsburgh. As we mentioned, Bill was selected number 2 overall by the Falcons, where he moved from tackle to guard. Some guys have trouble with that, some don't. Bill did it seamlessly. I called a friend of mine in Atlanta, who was the quarterback of the Falcons back then, David Archer, and I said, Arch, give me a story about Bill Fralic. So he said, Jerome, let me ask you a question. Who's the best defensive lineman that you ever saw play football? I said, boy, that'd either have to be Mean Joe Green or Reggie White. And he said, I'll tell you what, I never played against Mean Joe, but I played against Reggie. We're in a game up in Philadelphia. Jeff Van Note, he's huffing and he's puffing. And, you know, Jeff Van Note was an all-pro lineman. And he looks over and he goes, fellas, he goes, somebody's got to help me out here and get Reggie off me. We're not going to have a prayer. He goes, I looked over, and through his face mask, I saw this wry smile, and all I heard was, I gotcha. And Reggie White was a non-factor for the rest of that game. The great Reggie White, a non-factor. That is how good Bill Fralic was. He told me that his teammates called him the silent giant. He said, don't get me wrong, he had a great personality and he liked to have fun and have jokes and go out for beer once in a while. He would not talk about himself. He wouldn't talk about himself to his teammates. He wouldn't talk about himself to other players, to the media, even the fans. He didn't like to brag. He was not that kind of a man. But he said, Arch told me, he goes, Jerome, the way he hit the weights and the way he practiced elevated every one of our teammates' commitment to win. They saw Fralic in there working twice as hard as everybody else. They knew they had to step up their game. That is what you call a leader on a football team. Bill was All-Pro in 1986 and 1987, made the Pro Bowl 4 straight years, 86 through 89. And to the delight of pro wrestling fans, something tells me Ralph had something to do with this, he was involved in WrestleMania 2 when all those NFL guys went up there. I remember I actually paid for that on pay-per-view, but it was very wildly entertaining. After he played a little bit for the Lions at the end of his career. After he retired, he was an announcer for the Falcons and then started a very, very highly successful insurance practice. Now, Bill left us, unfortunately and tragically, at the far too early age of 56, but he left an indelible mark on college football fans here in Pittsburgh and pro football fans in Atlanta and Detroit. So it is my honor right now to welcome his wife, Susan, to the stage to accept on Bill's behalf.
Thank you. It's difficult coming up here because he's so missed by my family, who I couldn't be okay. They're so supportive, and all of his friends who now support me. I so appreciate it. I'm going to be so quick because it's after 9. We're done. So thank you, Steve, and the Croatian Foundation. I really wish Bill was here to accept this honor. Bill used to say, in order to be successful, you don't have to be special. You just have to be about the things that most are not. Consistent, determined, and willing to work for it. No bullshit. That was Bill. There is no better place than Pittsburgh that reflects these values, and there is no better representation of Pittsburgh than Bill. Once again, I would like to thank the foundation, Ralph and the Cindrich family. Thank you for everything. I love you guys so much. What you did for Bill, what you did for me and my family. Bill and our dogs. That's my family. So once again, I would like to thank the foundation for this incredible honor. And on behalf of my truly beloved husband, I love you forever and always. Sorry about that.
By the way, to show you how the Croatian community brings people together, I just learned tonight Susan and I live about 5 miles away from each other. How about that? We're neighbors. You know, before I continue on this Pitt love affair, from a personal note, I got to tell you, it's a huge thrill for me tonight. I was a broadcaster my whole life because I wasn't talented enough to make it to the collegiate or the NFL level playing ball, but I played sports since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. And one of my earliest heroes who was not on the field, was in the broadcast booth, was Curt Gowdy. My second favorite announcer, as I grew up and really fell in love with all the Pittsburgh teams, is here tonight to celebrate all these Pitt guys. How about a round of applause for the legendary, recently retired, and the great Bill Hillgrove. Bill Hillgrove is here tonight. Look at Bill. Man, that guy is the voice of Pittsburgh sports. We love you, Bill. We love you, brother. There are so many Pitt people here. Bill came here to support all of them, as well as Tomasovich, he told me. Hey, it's rare when a coach can change a major aspect of his or her sport, but our next inductee did just that. When a lot of us were very, very young, you know, the NBA back then, everybody in the NBA, they played 4 years of college, so they didn't need a lot of whole personal instruction. And a lot of the NBA coaches back then, you know, they maybe had one assistant coach because they didn't need it. Maybe they had two. And then Tim Grgurich entered the NBA. And the reason why he changed it was that 45 minutes before tip, those college guys that played 4 years, they were out there in layup lines like they were in high school. And the big guys were always jacking up three-pointers because they knew they weren't allowed to do that in the game, right? And then next thing you know, guys start coming out of college after junior year, sophomore year. A lot of them come out after freshman year. Now a handful of them come out straight from high school. So they needed that added instruction. And in those 45 minutes, Tim Grgurich turned it into individual improvement and last-minute game time preparation. Now you look at an NBA game, there are 8 or 9 assistants behind the bench on every NBA, and half of them are nowhere near as talented as Tim Grgurich. The NBA awarded him the Tex Winter Assistant Coach Lifetime Impact Award. That is the kind of impact that man had on the NBA. You know, the great coaches, whether it's Chuck Noll or John Wooden or Dean Smith, they all consider themselves teachers. Tim Grgurich, he taught basketball. He was a legend in the NBA. Rick Carlisle, when the Mavericks won their only NBA title, I got to read it. Here's what their head coach said, quote, "Tim is the greatest assistant coach in the history of basketball, and it's not even close." Jason Kidd was the all-star point guard on that team, on that championship team, one of the best point guards in the NBA history. He is now the head coach of the Mavs, and he had this to say about Tim. Okay, we're crashing and burning. It's there, it's coming, I promise you. Thank you, Tim. Well, we're queuing that out. Let me tell you what, I was out in Denver with the Nuggets for a couple years, and George Karl got hired out there. And so I sent him on Twitter, I sent him a note. I said, "Coach," I said, "we're inducting Tim Grgurich. You got something for me?" He goes, "Let me tell you something. Tim is so revered in the NBA." He goes, "I hired him everywhere I was." George Karl hired him, Seattle, Milwaukee, and Denver. Isn't that right? He just kept hiring Tim Grgurich because he knew. You know, before he made it to the NBA, he was in college as well. Those great UNLV running Rebel teams under Jerry Tarkanian, who do you think taught those guys how to play defense? Tim Grgurich did. And before he went out to Vegas, he was right here at Pitt, longtime assistant, and then the head coach of the Panthers. Now, I can sit here and give you statistics, numbers, years that he was there at Pitt, but why would I do that when you have the greatest basketball to ever play for the Pitt Panthers, the greatest basketball player right there? Come on up here. Here's my man. When I got the job with the Hawks, he was general manager of the Atlanta Hawks. The great Billy Knight is here to help bring in Tim and has a couple of words to say about his whole coach.
Well, let's see. I'm glad this microphone is adjustable. We all love Coach Gerg, and I'm speaking on behalf of all of Gerg's guys. Those are all Gerg's guys here. These are all Gerg's guys. Raise your hand, guys. We're all Gerg's guys. Sure, Coach Gerg, he was our coach. Sure, he was our coach, but he was our friend. He was our confidant, and he was also, you know, would help us with women from time to time. Of course, he'd always tell us, whenever we'd ask for suggestions or opinions or help, he'd say, "I'll talk to you about it tomorrow." And then he'd go home and talk to Kathy about it. Because he didn't know anything. He was finding out from her. I'm sure. He was getting all the info from Kathy. Because every time, "I'll talk to you tomorrow." But he did so much for us on the court and off the court. He molded us as players, of course. He worked us, ran the stadium steps, ran the tower steps. I can remember hearing him say, "You scored some points, but you still haven't really played good D yet. You haven't played the D I'd like you to play." And I learned later what to say in response to that. "Coach, we still got to outscore our opponents, don't we? We still got to score more points." So we go back and forth about that, but we love Coach Gerg. He's done so much for us, and we appreciate him. He's still our confidant, he's still our friend, and he's still our coach in life. We have a saying that is used sometimes. I know the players that I played with, Mickey, Kirk, Tom Booth was our manager. They say that the only thing Coach Gerg would say to them was, "Give the ball to Mooney, give the ball to Mooney, give the ball to Mooney." But there was a different way to say it. "I don't need no pick, I don't need no play, give me the ball and get out the way." That's another way you could say it. Coach did so much for us that we never forget the things that he taught us. He taught us to work hard, be loyal, be patient, be someone that can be trusted, and be a good family man. So those are the things that I remember Coach instilling in us. There's a line that's well known. A person comes into your life. When you meet someone, they come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. Coach Gerg has come into our lives for a lifetime. He'll be with us forever. Thank you, Coach.
Billy's as smooth in front of a microphone as he was with a ball in his hands out on the court, I can tell you that. Tim, why don't you come on up and welcome us. Let's welcome you into the Croatian American Sports Hall of Fame.
Gerg, congratulations. Croatia Hall of Fame in Pittsburgh. Only you. You've had an impact on all of us, especially me, not just as a coach, but as a player a long, long time ago. I would like to thank you for your hard work and telling me the truth always. Congratulations to you and your family on the Hall of Fame.
Well, how about if we all stand up and give him a standing ovation? We need to stand up. Everybody stand up. Get a stretch. Everybody get a stretch.
He's still coaching.
No. Hey, Matt, could you come up, please? Could you come up, please? Come on up here, please. Hey, Moon. God bless, man. I want everyone to know that the only reason I'm standing here tonight because of Matt Frajanic and his influence on the committee. And Matt talked to all the folks who made the inductions. Matt, where are you going? Come back. You're a coach. Come on. Made all the
I have to listen to you after all these years.
introduction to all the people. I want to congratulate all the inductees, congratulate all the committee people. Thank you. I'd like to say one thing. John, some of the folks who already spoke, John, Jim, Janice, who we talked last night, Ralph Stoddard. They made the biggest thing about tonight, family. They talked about family. They talked about all the folks who came from the old country, all the folks who came from whatever country you came from. And if you think about it, your grandma or grandpa, great-grandma, grandpa, your mom and dad, can you imagine getting onto a boat, have no idea where you're going? Okay, when you get there, you don't know anyone. Think about the language. Think about the education. And for Western Pennsylvania, I'd say most of the people from the countries in Yugoslavia either worked in the coal mines or the steel mills. And you think about your pop working in Heppenstall's steel mill in Lawrenceville for 50 years, walking, every morning he walked 10 minutes and going into the mill. Or all you guys that lived out in Novella and Redstone and all those places, you went into the coal mines. Just think about that. And when you think about that and look where we are right now, take a look at each other. Most of us went to school. I know my folks didn't go to school. Timo Grgurich and Anna Marie Wookitz, no education. Okay. And think about all of us right here and what they all did for us. And you all set the table tonight on everything you say. I can't match you on what you say. Coaches or teachers, one sitting right in front of me, great competitor. We fought each other in the NBA. They won a couple championships, we won a couple championships. One thing Rudy and the head coaches in the NBA can do, they can, what Billy Knight had mentioned, they can handle players. They can handle men, they're teachers. Players do not forget them. They remember who their coaches are, even though you hear all the commentators on TV, don't believe most of them. Stephen A. Smith is the worst, okay? All right, so don't believe anything. This is who you believe. Billy Knight, thank you, as always. Billy couldn't guard me, okay? If you want to get a triple-double, that's who you pass to, okay? He would get you a triple-double. But the Zivic family, can you all please stand up? Okay, please. I grew up in we lived 10 minutes from here. Stokins, Zivics, Grguriches, Simsiks, Brozoviches, Dukoviches. We all lived 10 minutes from here in a place called Lawrenceville, between 47th Street and 50th, between the river and the steel mills and Butler Street. Stokins was right here. That was a bar. And Zivics was right there. And Jerome said, Lawrenceville, you had to fight your way out. Well, I lost my sport coat going between Stokins and Zivics today. I had to fight my way through it. So they took my sport coat. So I remember, I was in your bars. I'm going to kind of cut this short because this is the most important thing for me being here tonight with all you folks from where I'm from. My family was from. I've never been overseas, so I don't know all the ins and outs about Croatia, Serbia, Slovakia, Slovenia. Had players, so as coach, he has had players from those countries. Could you guys all please stand up, please? All the guys from Pitt, please stand up. Back in the day, saw him on TV, all the nice things. There was one night down in Oakland when they won a big game, and he and about 4 other linemen went through a parking lot on the roofs of the cars. So on Sunday, they called all the basketball and football guys in with all the police, and there they were, right there. Please stand up, guys. Okay, my family, some came from Las Vegas, some live in Pittsburgh. They're all at the tables right here. Could you all please stand up? Thank you. Please stand up. Everybody stand up. You guys all came with me, please. Okay, I guess what I'm trying to say, and Coach could say the same thing. When you're a coach and a teacher, Pete Knoll, old-time coach, probably the greatest teacher we ever had. Everybody gets a piece of you. Everybody in this group right here, whatever little thing they have right here, you're a piece of that. Whatever I do, you're a piece of that. All my family, Kath. And you all say, Kath, God bless her. She's in heaven. She's already in heaven, okay? Daughter Jennifer, my second family, the Wooketses, are right in there. And all my girls right here, Kane, Linda. And I like to say one thing. If you could just kind of close your eyes and put your head down. We had a very, very, very close friend who just passed away. His name was Billy Shea, probably the greatest coaching human being. We went to school together, coached 50 years at a junior college, and his family came tonight. And I just wanted you all to say a little whatever, something, because he changed my life. He changed my life. I wouldn't be here. These guys wouldn't be here. So, but again, I just like to give you all everything. Hey, just thank you. This wouldn't have happened without you, okay? All right, thank you. And I would say the same thing, all the family, John, Janice, the Cindriches, okay, Bill Fralic's family, everybody. I'd like to give everybody a hand, okay? That's great, great. Thanks for all. I'm just happy to be here. It's great coming back to Pittsburgh. If you've ever been to Lawrenceville lately, I think I was on Mars today. Okay? The Strip, you got knocked out every time you walked through the Strip back then. Now the whole country walks through. They're all happy as can be. Okay, but Lawrenceville was different, and we went down there today, and God bless them. I'm very happy for the city. But thank you all. Thank you very much. Okay.
Get him in the middle. Coach, not one picture in the middle. One picture there when you stand in the middle. Hold those guys out there. Give space. No crowd here. Sit a point guard. All right.
Anybody that doesn't think coaches impact people's lives, look at that crowd here to support Grg. That's fantastic. Hey, we want to take a moment to welcome the family of one of our members of the inaugural class a couple of years ago. They weren't able to make their ceremonies in Cleveland, but they're here with us tonight. The great George Mikan's son Patrick and daughter Maureen are here. You know, if you like basketball or you watch SportsCenter or you listen to Sports Talk Radio, you hear these guys now say, who's better, LeBron or Michael Jordan? They have this argument all the time. Personally, I think it's MJ. But anyway, 40, 50 years ago, it was who's better? Was it Russell or Chamberlain? And then 10 years after that, was Kareem better than both of them? Well, let me tell you, the first 50 years of pro basketball, there was no debate. George Mikan was named the greatest player of the first half century. The first true big man in basketball, 3-time All-American, 2-time Player of the Year at DePaul. When he went pro, he led his teams to 7 championships in 9 years, 5 of them with the Lakers franchise. His son Patrick and daughter Maureen are here, and they're going to come up and say a few words about their dad, who was inducted 2 years ago up in Cleveland. Where are you guys? Here they are. Patrick said he was going to give me that wonderful 75th anniversary jacket at the end of the night. Isn't that nice of him?
Hi. As the youngest daughter of George Mikan, I've had the honor of sharing a few words about a man who, to the world, was a towering figure in the world of basketball, a legend, but to me was simply my dad. Growing up with a father like George Mikan meant living in a shadow of greatness. yet he never made us feel small. He was a giant in stature, yes, but even more so in character and heart. His accomplishments on the court were remarkable, paving the way for the sport of basketball for what it is today. Yet, the greatest achievements in my eyes was in the house. My dad's story begins long before the lights of the basketball court. His journey traces back to his Croatian roots, a heritage he was deeply proud of. Growing up, he would tell us stories and share stories of his family's journey from Croatia to America, a journey filled with hope, resilience, and sacrifices. It was that legacy of strength and perseverance that shaped his own character and guided him throughout his whole life. On the court, he was a pioneer, a force, a major force, who changed the game forever. But it was off the court where he left his biggest impact. I don't know why I'm so nervous. I'm really emotional because I'm the youngest. I miss him so much, and this has been just a really big honor. It's just special. And I know, oh, I'm sorry. Okay, here we go. On the court, he was a pioneer, Okay. Like I said, we'll wrap it up here. Okay, but it was on the court, okay. Despite his fame, my dad remained humble and grounded. One of the things I cherished most about him was how he treated everyone with respect. Whether he was meeting his fans or having dinner with his family, he always made people feel special. He showed us that true greatness isn't about the accolades or the applause, but about the impact that you have on the lives of others. He made it clear that success meant nothing if you couldn't share it with others. And he showed us, his children, the importance of kindness, hard work, and gratitude. My dad taught us to embrace our heritage, be proud of where we came from, and to carry forward the values passed down through the generations. He lived those values every day, not only in his career, but in his dedication to his family and to his community. He was our rock, our mentor, and he was the heart of our family. Today, as I stand here honoring him, I am filled with pride, not just for the man the world saw, but for the father we knew. His legacy will forever be woven with the love he showed us, his Croatian heritage, and the lasting lessons that he taught us. Thank you. And my brother has 99 seconds. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, Jerome told me, and Steve said, hey, you got 99 seconds, Mike, and so let's get this show on the road. So here we go. So anyway, my sister just got back from Croatia. She just spent 3 weeks there. She flew back into Phoenix. I met her there. I live in Los Angeles. And we met in Phoenix, and then we fly down to Pittsburgh. So she was really dedicated to come here. The reason I'm wearing the coat is my brother, Michael, accepted this coat from my dad at the 75th anniversary of the NBA back in Cleveland in 2022, and he was one of the 75 greatest. And so my brother, thank you. So my brother Michael wishes he could have been here tonight, but Maureen came, and and so I'm proud to wear this.
Consolation prize.
Yeah, consolation. I'm proud to wear this coat. That's the way I'm wearing it. I always think of my dad, as someone who I'm here because of my dad. I don't know anything about the Croatians. I know I'm a Croatian, but now with my sister being, Croatian, Smoatian, I didn't know anything, and here I am. And I've learned a lot in the last couple days. And what I want to say about what I've learned a lot is I could go on and tell you about all my dad's accomplishments, but hey, he won those championships. I'm wearing the coat. There's been all sorts of honors, and it's been great to grow up with a father. My sister said it all. However, what I've learned here is my dad's grandfather came from Croatia, and they came to Rankin, Pennsylvania, And then they ended up in Joliet, Illinois. That's where they ended up. And I've got so many memories just being here with, now I understand, now I understand the Croatian. And you know what's really great? I could go on about my dad, but I've got a Croatian family here. That's really what I want to get across, and I just want to say again, when we did the 2022 jersey retirement where the Lakers retired my dad's number, my family was there, and my dad always wanted unity within the family, and my dad wanted his number retired. That happened in 2022. Tonight, I have my niece, Molly, and her baby cakes with her. I have Gina, my other niece, and then I have my brother-in-law, Adam, and they came. Molly came from Duluth, Gina came down from New York, and my brother Terry, my brother Larry, my brother Michael, and my sister Tricia couldn't make it, but here I am, and I want to say this about this whole experience.
It's 99 seconds are up.
True love never dies. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Go Lakers. Pittsburgh. Come on, Joseph, get that. I need that for... Thanks, you guys.
That's all right, don't worry about it. 99 seconds because the jersey number was 99. That's okay. He only gets inducted once. Well, you could argue with Steve afterwards. I say take as long as you want. All right, our final inductee, it's kind of special to me. I told him this last night. I'm sure he heard this kind of stuff all the time. I was 40 years in broadcasting, and in those 40 years, I covered the NBA at different levels. I began my career up in Erie, Pennsylvania. I used to make the drive over to the old Richfield Coliseum for Cavs games, and then 15 years with CNN, 5 with Fox, and then a total of 17 years either with the Denver Nuggets or the Atlanta Hawks. So growing up a huge basketball fan, as you can tell, I'm slightly tall, so I played the sport a lot growing up with a lot of people. Didn't have half the talent of Billy Knight's left knee, let alone his whole body. But I loved the sport. And when I was growing up, I had 3 favorite players. Another Laker great who was born and raised and started at West Virginia, the great Jerry West, who unfortunately left us not that long ago. Dr. J, because who didn't love Julius Erving? And the other one was a man named Rudy Tomjanovich, because when I saw the back of his jersey, I said, that guy's got an itch at the end of his name. I love that guy. Rudy Tomjanovich was a star basketball player at the University of Michigan, earning All-American and all Big Ten honors in his 3 years with the Wolverines. He's still in the top 6 overall for scoring and top 3 for rebounding, all time at Michigan. Second overall pick in the NBA draft by the Rockets, spent all 11 seasons playing in the NBA with that organization, made 5 trips to the All-Star game. And even now, he is still 4th on the all-time scoring list for the Houston Rockets. Rudy had his number retired at both his alma mater, Michigan, and with the Rockets franchise. After his playing days were over, Rudy went on to coaching. Late in his career, had success with the Olympic team, won the gold medal at the Sydney Games in Australia, but he really made his mark down in Houston. Took over the Rockets midway through the 92 season. They're struggling. They just missed the playoffs. The next year, they won the Midwest Division. He became the first coach to take a team that was in the lottery one year and in his first full season make the playoffs. The very next year, the first of 2 back-to-back world championships. Second one's always harder to get because everybody's gunning for you. So they didn't have quite as high a seed the second year, but they still won it. As a matter of fact, on that playoff run, they were the first team to beat the top 4 regular season records on their way to the title. First time that has ever done it. Matter of fact, he was the first coach to take that lottery team to the playoffs a couple years earlier than that. I called a member of that franchise. I said, Clyde the Glide Drexler, Hall of Famer, give me a story about Rudy T. He said, Jerome, when you play for Rudy Tomjanovich, it's like playing in basketball heaven. The ultimate player's coach. Even when we scuffled, which we didn't do often, always had a smile on his face, always picked up the team. He said Rudy was an all-star player and a championship coach because he's an all-star human being. And those of us who have got to know him the last couple of years a couple days can agree with that. Clyde just went on and on and on, but I got a little more than 99 seconds, so I want to say this. Rudy's career 503 wins and 559 winning percentage remain Houston Rockets franchise records. Because of his coaching, his playing, the gold medal, he's in the Basketball Hall of Fame. I'll end my introduction with this. After that second championship, on the court, the announcer runs out there doing interviews, and remember, they were a low seed, but they still won the title. Rudy had that famous quote, "Don't ever underestimate the heart of a champion." I say don't ever underestimate a good Croatian either. Ladies and gentlemen, Rudy T.
Thank you very much. My butt was falling asleep. I am truly honored to be a part of this really great award. And congratulations to all the other recipients. Usually at something like this, I would name all the people who have helped me be a success, and there are many, but I have already talked to them personally and thanked them, and they know how much I appreciate them. Today, I want to talk about, since this is a Croatian event, I want to talk about a wonderful Croatian that helped me when I was a young man, and that is my Uncle Joe, Joe Modich. When I was young, he taught me all the sports. And we were poor. We couldn't afford anything, and he bought me the equipment, the bat, the ball, the spikes, and he was there every weekend to practice with me. He was a very caring, giving person, and he gave me some wonderful, important advice. He says, I'm going to be honest with you. To be successful, to have a good life, you have to go to college. But the truth is, your family has no money, and the only way you're going to do it is you're going to have to earn a scholarship by keeping good grades or playing a sport very well. So he gave me that plan. His son, Mark Modich, was a member of the 1959 World Championship Little League team that played in Williamsport. And my town was only 1 square mile in the middle of Detroit. And it was a big time deal. They wound up on the Ed Sullivan Show, 12 years old. They danced with the pretty girls on the Lawrence Welk Hour. And he was only 12, and all this praise would put upon him, and it was amazing. He never got cocky. He remained humble. He became my hero and my role model. So I tried to follow his lead in baseball. And I was pretty good. I was an all-star, but I ran into a sarcastic coach who loved to belittle his players. And that tactic just didn't work with me, so I hated going to the ballpark. I actually used to pray for rain, so I didn't have to go. So I go to Uncle Joe, and I tell him I'm thinking of quitting baseball. And he says, absolutely not. You made a commitment, you got to stick to your commitment. And, I reluctantly went back. But he secretly observed what was happening at the ballpark, and he came to me and he said, "You shouldn't have to put up with that nonsense." So he says, "I'm going to get you on another team." And I says, "I don't love baseball." He said, "But what about our plan to get to college?" I said, "I'm going to play basketball." He said, "Rudy, you're an all-star in baseball. You sit on the bench in basketball." I said, "But I love it. I really love it." And he thought I was crazy. The truth is, I did sit on the bench in basketball. In junior high, I was on the team, and I never played 1 minute. And a friend of mine who was bigger than me played all the minutes, and he never beat me once in one-on-one. And it was torture sitting on the bench watching him play, and I knew I wasn't getting in the game. And once in a while, he would tease me, and I'd say, "Get over here," and I'd whoop his butt. Excuse me, I'm old. All I thought about was basketball 24 hours a day. In fact, I carved into my bed, "I love basketball." And I put my hand out and I went to bed dreaming that one day I would be a basketball player who got into the game. I did get the scholarship to University of Michigan, but my career was not a smooth one. I had to face a lot of trials and tribulations. My first year in the NBA, they called me a first-round flop, but I turned that around and made the All-Star team 5 times. When I was a coach, when I was a coach, we lost 2 home games in the playoffs when we were up by 20 points. And the next day in the paper, with letters this big, "Choke City," that we choked, and we turned that around and won the championship. In basketball, I got criticized way worse than that guy who was in baseball, but I never thought about quitting because I love the game. And when I use the word love, I'm not talking about just this feeling. I'm talking about a way of life. When you cherish something, you want to keep it, you want to protect it, and you want to make it better. And it takes hours and hours of hard physical work, but it also takes mental work. And and then you got to practice over and over the things you learn. I stand before you very grateful that God put these great players, these great coaches, and a great uncle in my life, and they helped me to have a life beyond my wildest dreams. In closing, I want to tell you that I haven't had a lot of contact with Croatian people. Both of my parents were Croatian. They met in a factory in Detroit, but we didn't know other Croatian people, so I don't know much about the customs and traditions. But I have to thank Ed Pezos for an awesome educational tour of this great museum and the beautiful artwork and a lot of the history, and Lisa and I really enjoyed that. But when I was playing, I always thought I got to find out more about what it means to be a Croatian, and I coached a a Croatian player, and he said, "I think you're from Brač." And when I would tell somebody that, they'd go, it was very positive. "Oh, beautiful, really beautiful." And I liked that, and I was proud, but I have never been there. You know, so I befriended a reporter, and he said, "You know what, I'm going to go and find out where your people are from." And when I saw him again, he says, I have news. You are not from Brač." I said, "Really?" He says, "You're from Krivi Put." I said, "That sounds weird, man." He says, the translation is wrong way. I'm from wrong way, Croatia. And he said, there's another translation, and it's Crooked Road. So when I said Krivi Put to people, the reaction was like a frown, like, where? You know, and I have to admit, I was disappointed. So I got the opportunity with a friend to drive up a crooked road into the mountains in Croatia and go to Krivi Put. And my friend could translate. And up there, we ran into Rudy Tomjanovich. She was 5 feet tall. She had married a Tomjanovich man. Unfortunately, he and his son were killed in the war. And when we heard that, you know, we gave our condolences, and the mood was down, but she wasn't down. She jumped up and started to walk out of the house quickly, and she led us down the road, and she pointed into a valley, which was a cemetery. And in that cemetery, and it had been snowing, in that cemetery were these gigantic black granite gravestones. And there were no footprints, and it was a beautiful sight as we were looking down. And I'm just like in awe. All of a sudden, she starts running. And she goes down there, but the snow drifts are so big, and she's only that tall, she's struggling in the snow. So I see this, I pick her up, and I take her to where she wants to go, and she starts brushing 2 of these gravestones off, getting the snow off of it, and it shows her husband and her son. And I looked into her face, and I did not need a translator. I saw what Croatian love and pride was that day. And now I am not ashamed to be from Krivi Put. Thank you.